This is CBC Here and Now.
Personally, myself, I'm used to it now, just everyday thing.
Pretty exciting. It'll be a lot easier for sports, and back to school, hopefully we can take it off.
Working every day with it on, it's really hard to breathe. Time you get home, it's hard on your chest, so I'm glad that it's dropping.
Yeah, it's a heartwarming feeling. It's like a big hug.
Like them, love them, or hate them, for the first time in a year, masks are no longer mandatory.
And still ahead tonight, I'll take you to Springdale, where there's a doctor shortage.
Having a regular doctor, a family doctor, is next to impossible now.
And staff here are relying more and more on virtual ER care.
Well, we have the risk of some thunderstorms for parts of Labrador tonight and tomorrow, but the big story is the heat and humidity returns.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, Newfoundland and Labrador's mask mandate is over. Now, the province's top health officials are still strongly recommending wearing a mask, but legally, you are no longer required to wear a mask in most public indoor spaces. However, there are exceptions. You'll still need to mask up in hospitals, in long-term care homes, courthouses, airports, and on buses. Individual businesses are still navigating these new rules. Some are doing away with the mask requirement, while others are still asking customers to cover up. Well, the province's mask mandate came into effect on August 24th of last year. That's almost 1 full year of wearing masks, so perhaps no surprise, feelings about this change are mixed. Here Now's Chrissy Holmes has been following this story for us today. She's down at the pedestrian mall. So Chrissy, you've been speaking with people on the street. Do things feel any differently down there today?
Well, Carolyn, I think for sure things are feeling a lot less moist for many people. We're seeing a lot more lipstick, for example, no doubt about it. People are still hesitant. I'm seeing a lot of this too. People that are still keeping their masks very close to reach. People seem to be going on the cues of other people. If other people are wearing the mask, they're going to keep masking up, and vice versa. So it's kind of turned into a bit of an etiquette thing. But no doubt, the overwhelming sense that I got after speaking with so many people down here today is that people are really grateful for this newfound sense of freedom.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a freedom. It is. It's nice, and like as long as we stick to the rules that are in place and guidelines, I don't want to be like other places, and we have the freedom here. I don't want to lose it.
Well, I said I think I'm gonna put some lipstick on today, a little bit of makeup, and put on a smile, because normally people can't see your face, and it was a good day to have some makeup on and see other people's faces.
Does it feel like a bit of a new world today?
It does, yeah. I'm still gonna wear my mask, but just because I have a little 2-year-old boy home.
Most people have been wearing their mask. I have seen a couple people. It's been kind of half and half, but most people seem to be wearing their masks still.
It's just sort of slow. It's not like everyone's taking it off today. I think everybody's still being a little cautious about it, and if you feel like you need to have your mask on, nobody's minding that, nor should I think anybody would mind if you had your own personal preference.
I don't wear it. In fact, I've only ever worn it very reluctantly and with a lot of resentment. So the first time I can exercise my own choice, I'm not wearing any mask.
We'll wear them if the store policy asks for them, and we'll keep our distance as always. And if we get into a big crowd and stuff, then if we've got to put them on, we will.
No, it seems like the safer, more, kind thing to do for people around you.
Well, I went to the Village Mall earlier, and I felt a little bit uncomfortable with no mask on, because everybody else was wearing masks. So I wonder if it was okay to wear a mask or not. And then I just hung around and stayed away from people, but I felt a little bit uneasy, and then I left. And then another place I went in, I actually asked the cashier, is it okay to go with no mask? And she said it's not mandatory, so I felt all right there.
It's nice to see it getting back to a bit normal. I mean, it's been pretty hard the past year and a half or so. So I'm glad people are enjoying it.
yeah, it's a heartwarming feeling. It's like a big hug for the heart after being isolated. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of mixed feelings there, and no doubt for people that are working in the service industry, for business owners, there's been a lot to take on in the last year. And that brings us to our next guest. Lauren Loader, owner of Cajones, joins us now. Good morning. Hi. Not good morning, good afternoon.
Good evening.
So what does today mean to you, for you and for your staff inside the restaurant? What have you decided to do?
Well, I think today's been a great day. I think this is a really important step on getting back to some degree of normalcy. And we've decided, after much discussion, we've told all our staff that it's their choice if they choose to wear a mask or not. Most have chosen to be free of the mask, given the very low numbers of COVID here in Newfoundland. We've been very fortunate here. There's been very little COVID here throughout the last year and a half, a couple of little flare-ups. But we've fared very well in comparison to the rest of the world. So most people are, we've had very little fearful comments today, none whatsoever. People seem to be very happy to be getting back to normal.
You know, inside the restaurant, something completely all together. You know, there were partitions, people had to do all kinds of things, yourself included. So take us inside the restaurant right now. And I mean, what changes now that we've got to this next level of freedom?
Well, we did, for a while, they were at 50% capacity, then 75, and now, just as of about a week or 10 days ago, back to 100% capacity. We still have some dividers, plexiglass and that kind of thing up in the restaurants. I suspect we'll leave that up for a little while longer. There's no real downside to that. It's a little bit of an eyesore, but that's nothing in comparison to the safeguard it provides. So, yeah, we're going to leave that up for a little while. The masks, on the other hand, given this recent announcement by Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, I think everybody's happy to embrace the freedom and get back to normalcy.
Especially on a hot day like today, hey?
Absolutely. Everybody can breathe easy.
Lauren, thanks so much for joining us. Best of luck.
Always a pleasure.
That's Lauren Loader, of course, owner of Cajones. And, you know, stay with us. A little bit later on the show, we're going to be speaking with a healthcare professional who actually sees this moment as an opportunity to spread a message of hope to tourists who are visiting Newfoundland and Labrador. That story coming up.
Well, you can see there, beautiful evening now, but temperatures this morning a little cool for parts of the province, certainly in those low-lying areas. Only was about 3 degrees this morning when you woke up in Badger, but this afternoon warmed up absolutely gorgeous. 26 degrees was your afternoon high, 21 in St. John's. And we've got those numbers up in the 20s up across Labrador as well. Happy Valley Goose Bay reaching a high near 26 degrees. If we take a look at the humidity, you're starting to notice that through parts of the province, certainly up across Labrador. Happy Valley Goose Bay feeling more like 29. Same thing for Badger. And as we head through the next couple of days, that is going to be the story. We'll really notice that humidity as we get into tomorrow is when we'll really start to notice that, right even up across parts of Labrador as well. Certainly into Thursday, but Friday and Saturday is when we're really going to start to notice that humidity. We're going to start to see humidex values somewhere between 25 to 30, even 35 possible as we get into Friday and Saturday. But I'll get into the rest of the forecast details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, to the west coast now, where the Green Bay area is dealing with a major problem, a shortage of doctors. The health center has only one full-time physician, and the emergency room is using virtual care. Here now's Colleen Connors visited Springdale to learn more.
The Green Bay Health Center should have 4 full-time physicians. Right now, there is 1. 3 physicians recently resigned and left the area. While this brand new healthcare facility that opened in May is located in Springdale, it serves people in communities all around here that make up about 9,000 people who are in need of care.
That leaves us quite short, and the full-time physician actually had to leave for 2 weeks, so we had 2 weeks with no full-time physician from a central health perspective here in the community. We were able to problem solve with that and make sure we had emergency room services. I was able to provide those 2 weeks service and cover.
So Young, now the only community doctor, has been filling in. For the last 2 weeks, he's been seeing his patients here for just an hour in the mornings before heading over to the emergency room. 1 doctor for nearly 9,000 people. The hours have been taxing, so Central Health brought in virtual ER care.
For those that are triaged at 3, 4, and 5s, which are less urgent, they would be seen by an emergency room physician from Grand Falls virtually over video. And then if, for example, someone come in that was more urgent, 1s and 2s, then I would be called. So I'm still on call here in the community, but I'm called for more urgent things.
Young was able to get some rest during that 2-week stint. The one full-time physician is now back from holiday, but virtual ER care is here to stay.
This is our new reality. I think virtual care in our healthcare system is going to be the aspect that exponentially explodes.
An important tool, yes, but the mayor and Young agree that it doesn't replace doctors on the ground. For the first time, Central Health has had to hire a recruitment agency to help find physicians. It's been a challenge during the pandemic. Now the town has even gotten involved.
It's something that's never come up in my 16 years on council. It wasn't necessary, but now all of a sudden we had to look at ways. We got to be creative. We're up against other rural areas looking for physicians.
Edison says Springdale, the hub of the area, has everything a young family doctor would need to settle down: schools, stadiums, swimming pools.
I would even go as far as to say our government should invest in our youth and offer up reduced education costs for physicians, but in turn have them turn around and offer us 10, 15 years of their life.
While the town and Central Health actively recruit doctors to come and stay, virtual conference ER services will be offered every third night, so the full-time physician and fill-in Young can get some rest. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Springdale.
Well, the federal minister agrees 3 decades is too long to settle a land agreement with Labrador's Innu Nation. Yesterday's report by the Canadian Human Rights Commission is calling on Ottawa to finalize a treaty with the Innu in the next 3 years. Seamus O'Regan wouldn't commit to that, but spoke about the Innu's concerns at a funding announcement earlier today. Here now's Mark Quinn was there.
We have waited a long time for justice, and many elders have died without seeing justice and died sadly wondering why Innu have not been treated fairly.
When Innu Chief Eugene Hart said leaders have died waiting for a land claim agreement, Federal Cabinet Minister Seamus O'Regan knew who he was talking about.
Ben Michel, Daniel Lashini, Bart Jack, knew them all. Yeah, I mean, I knew those guys well, and they were real leaders.
When asked twice if the federal government will commit to a land and self-government treaty with the Innu Nation within 3 years, O'Regan had this to say.
Yeah, we got to get things done with them. There's no question. I think that significant progress has been made in tangible things to make their communities better, and also, frankly, in things like the New Dawn Agreement that they signed with Nalcor. But there's still a long way to go. I understand that. I know it. I grew up in Happy Valley Goose Bay.
The Canadian Human Rights Commission report released yesterday concluded the federal government has failed to respect the Innu Nation's basic human rights for decades. It says a land claim and self-government agreement with the Innu would go a long way towards ending ongoing injustices.
My heart is with them. I know their leadership, and I'm looking forward to meeting with them.
The Human Rights Commission can't compel the government to act, and O'Regan didn't say exactly when he'll meet with the Innu leaders, but he did say it will happen soon. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
The United Nations is calling it a code red for humanity. The UN released a dire report on climate change yesterday. It's warning there will be grave consequences unless we radically reduce our greenhouse emissions. While Canada has laid out carbon reduction targets, the country and this province remain huge producers of fossil fuels. Canada's Minister of Natural Resources agrees that we're on red alert, but also says government can't be too radical.
I keep repeating the fact that Canada is the 4th biggest producer of oil and gas in the world. Not because you just sit on that and like it's not going to change, but it gives you an understanding of how big this challenge is for this country. It is huge. It is huge. It's our #1 export. It's the biggest part of our national economy. So it's a matter of working with industry to make sure that no one gets left behind. No workers, no regions, and no consumers. Because frankly, in my opinion, in a democracy, if you get too far ahead of workers and consumers, they'll throw you out. And they'll put in a government that's not as ambitious about climate change.
Well, meantime, the city of Mount Pearl is making its public works building more energy efficient. It received federal and provincial funding to replace the oil furnace with electric heat pumps and solar panels. Mayor David Aker says that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and save taxpayers $30,000 a year.
And the dividend that will get repaid to our taxpayers and we'll reinvest is that saving at the end of the day. We will then reinvest that. That $30,000 represents another electric vehicle. It represents solar panels, perhaps on City Hall. We have an opportunity not so much to spend those savings on something else. We intend as a city to reinvest those funds right back into climate change and recycling and energy efficiency projects here in the city.
Well, the federal election hasn't been called yet, but candidates are falling into place. Longtime union president Mary Shortall will represent the NDP in St. John's East. She won the nomination over Dr. Syed Pirzada, president of the Muslim Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. Jack Harris, the riding's incumbent MP, is retiring after more than 30 years in politics. Now, the party has an equity rule in its constitution stating that when a man retires from an NDP-held seat, the replacement must be a woman, person of color, person with a disability, or member of the LGBTQ community. A local airline is taking its business in a new direction. Evis Air was an operator for Air Canada flights before the pandemic, and now they're branching out. CBC's Garrett Berry has more.
More than 10,000 pounds and 57 feet long.
This is kind of the configuration that we're going with right now.
This is the newest and biggest product from Gander.
This is where the stretcher would come in and lock into place on this deck.
You've seen this type of plane before, but you've never seen it like this.
It would be down at transfer height.
Optimized for air ambulance services in North America.
And of course, then we have all of our life-saving equipment.
A new agreement means Gander's Evis Air will convert 6 of these from passenger planes to air ambulances for a Hamilton-based company.
We needed something that could get into smaller airstrips, gravel airstrips, and carry multiple patients. We were talking with Pat about the Medimax. It seemed this ticked off a lot of our boxes that we needed to be in this business.
Before the pandemic, Evis used to fly this type of aircraft full of passengers, so it knows this plane's potential.
This aircraft is the right size. It can go into a 3,000-foot strip. It can climb to 25,000 feet and go over 300 miles an hour. So it's really ideal aircraft for that.
It's a new avenue for Evis. The company is riding out the pandemic headwinds by refocusing on retrofitting and cargo.
In July of 2020, we were at Christmas levels in cargo. So, you know, there's an ill wind that doesn't blow someone some good, I suppose. But no, our business has accelerated because of COVID.
White says he's waiting to re-enter the passenger market. For now, retrofitting is the way to go.
When COVID really hit, and by April, our passenger business shut down, we had already been working with our friends at Latitude.
And once this business gets up in the air, White says, watch out.
There are actually over 200 aircraft that have to be replaced in the United States of this size and gauge and so on. So I can see dozens and dozens of people working on this product in multiple shifts going forward. There are 439 of these planes built. There are 37 that have been chopped up for parts. There are 6 that have been crashed, leaving about a net of 380 serial numbers, and I know every one of them, and I know where they are.
Garrett Berry, CBC News, Gander.
Well, Canadian Infrastructure Bank plans to consider the possibility of a fixed link between Newfoundland and Labrador. CIB invests billions in federal funding to attract private investment for big infrastructure projects, and it just signed a memorandum of understanding with the province. Now, there were pre-feasibility studies on a possible link in 2004 and 2018. The cost is pegged between $1.5 and $2 billion. Labrador MP Yvonne Jones says she's been approached by 3 serious investors in the past 16 months interested in building a link.
I
kind of like graffiti, but with crochet, and then I throw it on the wall.
Well, that's how she explains yarn bombing. We'll meet a Twillingate textile artist after the break.
Well, a beautiful evening tonight. We're going to say goodbye to the cool overnight lows and say hello to back to that heat and humidity. I'll get into all the details when I come back.
Well, time for a look at the weather forecast and yet another beautiful day in the city of St. John's and for many parts of the province today, right?
It was, and it was warm again today. We're back into that nice heat, certainly, or warm temperatures, I should say, here in St. John's. Let's take a look at the current temperatures, though. We've lost a degree or two, 20 degrees right now in St. John's, but still a beautiful evening. 25 in Badger, and then those temperatures up through northern Labrador have been dropping through most of the day, so down to 13 degrees for you in Nain. And what we have on the go is that ridge of high pressure is sinking further south, and that's allowing more cloud cover to move in up across Labrador and parts of western areas of the island as well. And that's going to continue to be the story as we head through the overnight tonight. Now, if I zoom in a little bit, you can see kind of some of the texture in the cloud cover here. That is right there. Some areas of thunderstorms that are moving through, well, they're moving south of Labrador at the moment, but we are still looking at that risk as we head through the next couple of hours of seeing some thunderstorms. So we're going to see that from Lab West through to central Labrador as we get in through the next couple of hours. Likely in and around 9 or 10 o'clock. After that, we should see that end. But then again tomorrow, it looks like those thunderstorms will develop potentially again, or at least the risk of thunderstorms for Lab West through to Churchill Falls as we get into the afternoon hours tomorrow. So we'll see showers for the most part. That risk of showers certainly still in place as we head towards central Labrador as well as coastal Labrador, and that'll sink south as we head through the evening hours and overnight towards northern peninsula as well as western portions of the island. Otherwise, the rest of the province pretty much just seeing increasing cloud through the overnight, maybe some periods of drizzle along the southern shore. And as we get into the early morning hours, some heavier rain looks like it'll move in towards Lab West. So temperatures tonight, we're going to say goodbye to those single digits. They're going to be beautiful tonight as far as overnight lows go. 14 to 18 degrees across the island, a little cooler for the northern peninsula. And then same thing for Labrador. However, Nain, you're going to say partly to mostly or partly cloudy skies tonight and about 8 degrees. And the winds overall will be the strongest in the east. We're looking at southwesterly somewhere between 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Otherwise, they will ease through the night. So as we head through tomorrow, it's going to be unsettled for the most part. Generally looking at some cloudy periods through the day. The chance of showers will continue for most of us right through to the afternoon. Likely going to see some sunny periods, but overall it will be unsettled. Same story across Labrador, better chance of some showers, and again, that risk of thunderstorms for the west. And eventually you'll see some cloud cover move in late day for the southeastern portion of the Big Land. And then as we get into the evening hours and to the morning hours on Thursday, that big push of humidity is going to move in. Looks like we're going to see that drizzle and fog develop along the southern portion of the island. So tomorrow, temperatures a couple of degrees warmer than what we're seeing today, about 23 degrees in St. John's. The winds will be about 20 to 30 kilometers per hour out of the west in the morning, and then they'll ease as the day goes on. So it'll turn into a fairly nice afternoon. 25 degrees for Clarenville. Again, going to keep that chance of spotty showers in right across the board. A little bit more cloud cover, though, as we head towards central and as well as the Bonavista Peninsula, Bonavista North. Temperatures in the mid-20s, a little bit cooler in and around Twillingate. And then as we head towards the west coast, a little bit warmer, certainly towards the interior into the 20s, mid-20s. And again, you're going to feel those humidex values feeling more like 28, 29, even 30 in some cases. Towards the northern peninsula, a little bit cooler. Same thing for Labrador. Mary's Harbour only seeing a high near 16 degrees tomorrow. But another day in the 20s for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Same thing for Lab City. And the winds will generally be out of the south, about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. So as we get towards the weekend, it is going to stay a little bit unsettled. The chance of showers will continue for most of us as we get into Thursday and Friday. And I'll get into those details when I come back.
Well, if you've been in the Twillingate area lately, you may have noticed some unique crochet art cropping up throughout the community. Here's Nina Elliott, the artist behind Rock Vandal, describing how this street art trend came to be.
Hello, my name is Nina Elliott, and I go by the Rock Vandal, and I am a fiber-based street artist. I'm a yarn bomber, I guess, is another way to put it. So what I do is I use crochet and I make two-dimensional images, like kind of like graffiti, but with crochet, and then I throw it on the wall. I moved to Twillingate in 2012, and I knew how to knit, and I didn't know anybody when I landed here, and I got a little bit bored with making hats and scarves. And then I heard about yarn bombing, so I thought I'd give it a try, and I got really addicted because you can make anything. There's 4 businesses that are kind of sponsoring the idea of an outdoor art gallery in Twillingate using the theme A Time in Twillingate. I made one for Twillingate Adventure Tours. I made 3 ox, and there's a big caption that says, "I heart kayaking." So then I also have Georgina Sterling, which was a famous opera singer from the 1800s, and I've got her up on the Anchor Inn. And then I also have a huge codfish, and that's on Annie's Restaurant. And I made also a giant rainbow, and that's on the Crow's Nest Express Cafe. So in like making an outdoor art gallery, I've kind of like dragged everything out of my shed. I've been making for years, and threw them all up on the Ashbourne premises, which is like this beautiful historic building, but it's also, you know, in rough boarded up condition. So I have put up a mummer and a whale and Sasquatch and Homer Simpson and Waldo and Wenda, his girlfriend, and Woof, his dog, and also a Queen's Guard. When I first started yarn bombing, I kind of like expected that people were going to give me a hard time or tell me to stop, but nobody has told me to stop. 5 years later, I'm still going. People are super positive. It's like, it's fun for me to drive around and see that I've got stuff kind of all over town, but also super fun to see people stopping and taking photos and then sharing on social media. So that's like the kind of cycle of it, that people can have fun finding it and then have fun posing with it, and then they can hit me up on Instagram and let me know that they found it, and I can see how they engage with it, because everybody kind of engages with something differently, and that's always fun to see how people do that.
Lorraine, did you bring your mask with you today?
Yes, I did.
Are you ever going to buy any more masks?
Personally, I won't necessarily need to. I have about 20 reusable masks, so I don't think I'll actually purchase any, but I think I should be okay.
You know, I'm not actually trying to sell you any masks, but coming up in just a little bit on Here and Now, we're going to meet a woman who is a nurse by day, a mask maker by night, and she's hoping to send a message elsewhere in the world now that the tourists are here. We'll get that story coming up.
Returning now to our top story, the province has lifted its mask mandate. For the first time in 12 months, you're no longer legally required to wear a mask in most public spaces. So let's check back in with our Chrissy Holmes, who's live in downtown St. John's tonight. So Chrissy, after a year of plexiglass barriers and mask wearing, this is going to take some getting used to, I think.
I think so. And, you know, we spoke with a lot of people who were just not ready to have that mask too far away. You know, earlier today, I spoke with a woman who decided that she is not going to stop wearing her mask. In fact, she started work at the Health Sciences today with her mask on, and she says that she's going to continue personally wearing her mask all the time. She's a nurse by day, she's an Uber crafter by night, and when the pandemic began, Carolyn, she started to make masks. At first she was giving them away for free. She started to get these specialty orders, think, you know, brides, you know, graduations, big groups of people, and she was using the money from those specialty orders to fuel the free stuff. So now that we're in this new place where, you know, people aren't rushing out and trying to buy or get all these new masks, a lot of people have masks already, but now that she's in this new place, demand may be down, but she's seen another opportunity. So Roxanne has started making a new kind of mask, and with the tourists in town, she really saw that as an opportunity. I spoke with her just after she finished her shift as a nurse at the Health Sciences earlier this afternoon.
I describe it as Newfoundland's like the Shangri-La of COVID. It's where everybody wants to be. It's the perfect world. Our Chief Medical Officer of Health has done a fabulous job. She's listened to the research, she's listened to the science, she's guided us, and look at where we are by listening to the guidance. And you have to give credit to the population, to the people of the province too, because they've listened to her.
So what are you making these days?
I've made some masks. I have a lot made with Newfoundland tartan and the Newfoundland and Labrador map on the side. Those have been really popular. I just made some for the community of Cavendish and Trinity Bay, and I've only made a few of them because they're quite intricate. But they have the traditional or the well-known Cavendish sheds on them. I'm sure everybody's seen the Cavendish sheds. So I've got a black mask with the colored sheds across them. And those are the things that people are liking to pick up now.
And the point that you make is an interesting one, because with visitors coming, they might be looking for a keepsake that's Newfoundland and Labrador, but they're really going back to a very different situation than many of us are enjoying here. I mean, how much of that, as a healthcare professional yourself, how much of that is on your mind as you make these masks for people that are going to be bringing them off to other places in the world?
Yep. So we don't realize, again, how lucky we are. And then I've actually had close friends of mine who have come to visit from other parts of the country, not even internationally, and they're like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to what I just left. If everybody did what we're doing, it's simple. You know, they would be in the same state that we are. I just heard in a interview this morning done with the clinical chief at Lady of the Lake Hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana, about how they are completely out of beds. There's nothing else they can do. Their ICUs were at capacity. They don't have the staff. They have, I think she said, 67 beds out of over 800 available, and they don't have the staff to staff those because, of course, some of the staff now have COVID there as well. So they're completely out of what they can do. So the only thing they asked was for people to get vaccinated and for people to wear masks. So again, when our friends and family members go back to their homes outside of the province, you know, if they can wash their hands, wear their masks, get vaccinated, then, you know, they'll end up in the same place that we are. So I guess they need to take that back to their friends. They need to go back and spread the word and say, look where I came from, this is what they're doing.
It's certainly a good reminder, and Roxanne Jackson certainly comes from a place of knowing as a nurse and having witnessed in front lines and having colleagues across the country that are in a very different situation than we are here in Newfoundland and Labrador, or as she calls it, the Shangri-La of COVID. So no doubt she has shifted focus in some regards to try to get that message outside of Newfoundland and Labrador, and more or less to use the Newfoundland symbol as a sign of hope. that hopefully other places can get to this place where we are right now, Carolyn, because I tell you what, it certainly feels a lot of people certainly seem to be enjoying their sense of freedom down here this evening, and that is something that many of us will not be taking for granted ever again.
Yeah, for sure, Chrissy. And you know, this is only the first day, day one, and provincial health officials have said that they will bring back the mask mandate if they have to. So we'll have to see how this all plays out going forward. Thank you so much for this, Chrissy.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. It's not going too far away just yet.
Well, on that note, in other parts of the country, the number of new cases of COVID-19 are creeping back up. Unvaccinated people are overwhelmingly making up the growing caseload. And the number of people who have received at least one shot appears to be plateauing at around 71% of the population. Now, health experts say a fourth wave is very likely if more people don't get vaccinated. Vicadopia reports.
As COVID-19 cases tick back up, even fully vaccinated people aren't taking any chances. In just a month, the number of people showing up here for tests has quadrupled, and a greater percentage are testing positive, driven by the more transmissible Delta variant. The average daily case count is back up to where it was in June, and the upward trend is happening sooner than it did last year. On average, twice as many people are testing positive than last August, and the trend is being led by BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan.
We know the way this virus behaves. We know that once we start seeing increased cases, that direction of case growth isn't going to change unless we change something.
In Alberta, pediatricians are calling for that change with new public health measures, as cases have gone up since the province opened up.
We've also seen in Louisiana, where pediatric hospitalizations have been rapidly rising, that they've reinstituted indoor mask mandates in the state. And so we need both monitoring measures as well as some mitigation measures.
It's adult Canadians who haven't been vaccinated that make up 90% of new cases. The latest figures show they're also the ones most likely to be hospitalized or die. But there is optimism. History doesn't have to repeat itself this wave.
It's about what can we do fast to increase vaccine uptake, which pretty much is around some type of vaccine mandate or COVID certificate, or something along these lines, to quickly move, a relatively large chunk of individuals who are indifferent or hesitant to action.
Action now to prevent worse outcomes later. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, U.S. drug maker Moderna has signed an agreement to build an mRNA vaccine manufacturing plant in Canada.
With mRNA manufacturing facility in our own backyard, we will be much better equipped for the next global health crisis to protect the health and safety of Canadians.
Canada will be ready. We will be ready on Canadian soil to make, in a matter of months, a new vaccine for a new emerging virus to protect the Canadian population.
Well, it's the first foreign operation for the Massachusetts-based company. The agreement includes research and development and gives Canada priority access to the company's products. Lack of immediate access to COVID-19 vaccines has been a sore point for Canada during the fight against the pandemic. All the doses of COVID-19 vaccines have had to be imported from Europe, US, and India. The new facility is expected to be built within the next 2 years, but no location has been announced yet. Moderna says it's also working on drug treatments for the flu, heart disease, cancer, and rare genetic disorders.
During this pandemic, we've seen a lot more people have gotten out and gone hiking. What's the impact been on the East Coast trails?
There's been a larger number of things left behind, a larger number of fires on the trail or garbage, whether that be wrappers or orange peels. And those are the kind of things that we want to encourage people to take with them, bring them off the trail so that we can leave it in the pristine wilderness condition that it's in.
A lot of what you guys do is around trail maintenance and making sure that the trails are in good shape. So how much work has it been this year in order to get the trails back in the condition that hikers expect?
Yeah, we had a shorter season last year because of the delay starting with COVID last year. So we've had a little bit more work to catch up on last year's workload. So there's been that aspect, and then our volunteer maintenance outings have been very busy, happening every other weekend on paths around the system. So they've been hard at work doing a lot of that maintenance that's required.
You're busy doing some fundraising right now. How important is that part of the operations for the East Coast Trail?
Fundraising is essential to what we're doing, whether that be through this Trail Raiser on the go we have right now or through general donations or memberships. But the Trail Raiser on the go right now is important not only for the fundraising, but for getting people out on the trail and experiencing it themselves. And this year we've partnered with Canadian Mental Health Association for the second time. So that engagement with the mental health aspect to hiking is also really important.
So with the pandemic, a lot of people kind of felt trapped. They couldn't travel, and this was a chance for them to sort of get out a little bit. What sort of things have people been telling you about how important these trails have been during the last year and a half?
Yeah, lockdown has been a perfect time to explore the trails, or even after lockdown and getting to know the trails in your backyard. People have been telling us about all the whale encounters that they've been having, or just early mornings on the trail and getting out and having some peace and serenity and being able to escape from the crazy world that is all around us.
So how much money are you looking to raise?
This year we're hoping to raise $100,000. We reached it last year, so we're confident that we're able to do that again this year. And that money will be shared between the East Coast Trail Association and the Canadian Mental Health Association, which is a really important partnership that we've done for the second time this year to kind of highlight that mental health aspect that you engage with as you're out on the trail and hiking in nature.
Well, thank you very much for joining me out here on the trails and telling me about it.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
The federal government is committing more funding to the effort to find and commemorate the children who died at residential schools. $83 million will be added to an existing $27 million fund dedicated to finding unmarked burial sites and identifying remains.
We are also working to establish a national advisory committee which will provide expert advice to communities and government about this important work. It will be made up of experts who specialize in archaeology, forensics, pathology, and mental health, and all areas that can help in the difficult work of finding and identifying those children.
A total of $321 million is being pledged to help Indigenous communities respond to the impact of residential schools. That includes funds to provide mental health and cultural support for residential school survivors and their communities. The Justice Minister says his department will also work with Indigenous communities to look at changing federal laws. He says Canada doesn't have the legal tools needed to deal with the complex issues presented by the discovery of unmarked graves. Well, a Chinese court has upheld the death sentence of a Canadian man arrested for drug smuggling in 2014. Canada is condemning China's decision against Robert Schellenberg, calling it cruel and inhumane. Michael Spavor, one of two other Canadians detained in Beijing, is also awaiting a verdict in his case soon. All of this is happening as Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou fights her U.S. extradition case here in Canada. Freelance reporter Patrick Falk has the details. And apologies for that. Canada is condemning China's decision against Robert Schellenberg, calling it cruel and inhumane. One of two other Canadians detained by China, Michael Spavor, is also awaiting his verdict in his case soon. Beijing has accused Spavor and Michael Kovrig of spying The two Michaels were arrested in December 2018, just days after a top Huawei executive was detained in Vancouver at Washington's request. Meng Wanzhou is currently fighting her U.S. extradition case in Canada. Canada's ambassador to China was asked if he saw a link between the three Canadians in China with Meng's case. Dominic Barton says he didn't think it's a coincidence. These are happening right now while events are going on in Vancouver. Well, Ashley, bad news, I guess, for people who don't like humidity, because it's on its way back, right?
It's coming back, yeah. We're going to see our temperatures start to climb. Let's take a look at the forecast for Thursday, back up into the high 20s for most of us across the province, even up across Labrador. However, you'll note about 18 degrees in St. John's. That's just because the winds will shift a little bit, but yeah, it's going to get back to that uncomfortable sleeping in the evening hours if you don't have air conditioning. And it does look like things will stay a little bit unsettled through the day on Thursday. A mix of sun and cloud, but still that chance of showers through parts of central, along the southern coast as well. and back to that coastal fog thanks to that onshore flow and that moist air moving in. As we get into Friday, temperatures really start to ramp back up again, nearing, flirting with the 30-degree mark in some cases. However, it does look like skies will stay gray through the day on Friday. With temperatures up across Labrador, about 21 degrees in Lab City, and a little bit more sunshine in play for you up in northern Labrador as well. After that, then we're going to see the unsettled conditions continue for most of St. John's and eastern Newfoundland, but the temperatures will be sitting around 21 to 25 degrees, but those humidex values will be back up into the high 20s, even low 30s in some cases. Again, that chance of showers for both Saturday and Sunday, but just a slight chance at this point, and overnight lows into the teens. And as we head towards central Newfoundland, it looks like a little bit more sunshine, not quite as unsettled. We're still looking though, look at that, 30 degrees by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday. Chance of showers will return for you as we get into the afternoon on Sunday. For western Newfoundland, going to keep your skies a little bit more gray as we get in towards the weekend, maybe a little bit of peaks of sun for Saturday, but again, your temperatures in the high 20s. For eastern Labrador, you're going to see that high 20 as well. As we get into Sunday, a little bit more of a mix of sun and cloud, and 23 degrees, so a little bit more comfortable overnight as well, down to about 11 degrees. But for western Labrador, you're looking at the chance of showers right across the board. Slight chance, about 30 to 40%, but your overnight lows are going to dip into the single digits. I had to share this photo. This is a small shelf cloud in Bay de Verde. Roy Blanford shared that one with us. Great shot there. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
A shelf cloud.
That's a shelf cloud.
Because it looks like a shelf?
Exactly.
Oh. Interesting.
That's exactly what it is.
All right, well, that's it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Good night.